Thank you for taking time on your weekend to join us today to learn more about the academic experience at Scripps College. My name is Gloria Stratton and I'm the Director of Admission here at Scripps, and I'm so excited to be joined by our panelists today. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, then go through some housekeeping, and then we'll get started with the meat of the program. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Armstrong, and she will introduce herself, and then we'll hear from our students.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Armstrong. I'm the Associate Dean of Faculty. I am also a Professor of Biology, and I am also the Fellowship Advisor at Scripps College.
Hi everyone, my name is Gloria. I'm a senior at Scripps. I'm a cognitive science major and I am from Los Angeles, so about an hour away from Claremont.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining on a Saturday. So my name's Abby. I'm a senior at Scripps, dual majoring in Chicanx Latinx Studies and Latin American and Caribbean Studies on the pre-law track, and I'm an out-of-state student from Chicago.
Hi everyone, I'm Ana Rodriguez. I'm a sophomore at Scripps, majoring in foreign languages and environmental analysis. I'm from Quito, Ecuador, and I'm so glad you're all here.
So Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. So if you can, walk our attendees through Scripps general education requirements. When do students take these courses and how do they select them?
I will unmute myself, which would be much more effective. I would love to, thank you. So Scripps values multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary learning and education, and we prioritize that with our general education requirements. We also ask the same of our faculty as we do of our students. So 17 or so faculty come together from all different disciplines, for example, to teach Core 1, and the faculty are stretching outside their typical disciplines. As a result, they actually end up going into new areas of scholarship, which is really, really exciting. So you asked when they're taken. The GEs are taken really throughout a student's time at Scripps College. They should all be taken by the fall of one's senior year, but they don't all have to be taken in the first year. So if you're curious as to what our GEs are, we have what's called our core curriculum. And so these are classes 1, 2, and 3 that are taken in sequence, one each semester. Core 1 is shared by all of the students, which is really amazing and quite unique. So every single student passes through the same class. And this is that giant interdisciplinary class taught by about 17 faculty. As a result, the students have a shared experience that they take with them their 4 years. So when they're in other classes together as sophomores, as juniors, and seniors, they're able to refer back to what they learned in Core 1 and make connections across the years and across disciplines, which is really exciting. We also have what's called a breadth of study requirement at Scripps, which is really, we want students to explore different disciplines. So our students take a class in the fine arts, in letters, which includes literature and art history and philosophy and classics and religious studies, in the natural sciences, which is a science class with a lab, in the social sciences. And then we have additional requirements, for example, race and ethnic studies, which is a class that provides the opportunity to study the histories, politics, and cultures of people of African, Latinx, Asian, Middle Eastern, and Indigenous descent. We have a gender women studies class, which examines gender in a variety of social and cultural contexts. And we have math and foreign language competencies. So you can fulfill these by either one class in math or passing through by a test, a placement exam the summer before you begin, as well as foreign languages, which is to show competency up to the 3rd semester of a college language. And again, these are spread out through one's time at Scripps. Many of them can actually double count with a major or a minor. And so it's really something that forms sort of a scaffold for one's education.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jennifer. That was a really helpful overview, I think, of what classes will be that a student will take in addition to their major and elective courses. So spoiler alert, we are going to be talking students to you just a little bit later about your major, how you picked your major. I want to spend just a minute having you talk to our attendees about classes that aren't in your major. If you all wanted to share maybe a class that you've taken that you really enjoyed or that's been a personal favorite that is outside of your area of study or outside of your major, that would be great.
So like Professor Armstrong mentioned, we do have these wide variety of GE courses, and one of my favorite courses over the past 4 years has been my Race and Ethnic Studies GE class. So that one was called Migrant Memoir, and it was an American Studies class where we read lots of literature written by first and second generation immigrants in the States. And I really, really love that class just because I had never taken an American Studies class before, and it was a class that spoke to parts of my identity in ways that I wasn't really able to explore in my major classes. So that was really incredible to kind of have that experience and also have that count towards the classes that I need to graduate.
Awesome. I can follow. So yeah, I really enjoy the general requirements. I think they allow students to kind of discover hidden interests at times that they might not have known coming into college. So one of my favorite classes that was outside of my major was called Prison Punishment Redemption, and it's within the religious studies kind of discipline for my letters requirement. And so in this course, we explored like ideologies of punishment and redemption in relation to the prison industrial complex. And we like critiqued and redefined themes of redemption, correction, debt. And it was great because I've never looked at, the prison industrial complex through a religious studies lens. So I was learning about that, but the class also incorporated lenses that I was familiar with, such as like gender, sexuality, race, class. And so it was a great class that I've taken. I still talk about it with my friends to this day. So yeah.
This is a hard question for me because I love my majors. So I'm always like, oh, what am I going to take next? I'm like, what language? What am I going to take for environmental analysis? But I have taken some classes that are outside my major for IOGEs, but I think my favorite course that hasn't been for my majors has been Core 2 because its focus was American literature. And that's something that I'm probably not going to ever take again for any of my majors. So it was really interesting because, first of all, the professor was amazing. And every discussion we had in that class, I was always like, wow, this is so interesting. Why am I not majoring in English now? But I definitely think that class was very eye-opening in terms of how we analyze literature. The class was called Becoming Someone Else in America. And it was kind of figuring out how people hide themselves, become someone else. So we definitely read Gatsby. Maybe some of you in high school already read it. I did read it in high school. But I really liked that class because it definitely was completely different to what I'm focusing on studying. And it's always good to like leave your safe space and learn new things.
Well, I want to take all of those classes. So this is the moment when I will totally acknowledge that I am ready to go back to college right now. So thank you all for sharing that. That was really awesome. Jennifer, I think one of the parts of a Scripps academic experience that's really special is the engagement that our students have with their faculty. And I would love if you could talk to our attendees a little bit about the academic advising at Scripps. What does an academic advisor do at Scripps? And then I have a couple follow-up questions after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And an academic advisor is really a partner at Scripps. And they help with actually part of the question that you asked me earlier that I don't know that I got to yet, which is how do students select their general education requirements? And so part of that is with an academic advisor. One gets an academic advisor when you first arrive at Scripps or even before you first arrive at Scripps. You meet with your academic advisor before you register for your first semester of classes. That academic advisor is really your Scripps advisor, the person that's helping you adjust to Scripps, begin your year at Scripps, or maybe your first 2 years at Scripps. And what they do is they really listen to the student. So our goal as an academic advisor is to help a student find their path at Scripps. And we don't know what that path is. The student doesn't maybe know what that path is yet. So our goal is to help the student find their path. And so it involves conversations, it involves listening to the students, it involves asking the students questions such as what are they excited about, what motivates them, what is a class that maybe they have never taken but they're curious about. And so it's through those conversations that the students are, that it helps them figure out what they want to do, what they want to take. We also talk about their summers. So you think about college and you think about classes during the year, but you also have 3 summers, and it's really important to use those summers in a way that helps you figure out what you want to do beyond Scripps. And so an academic advisor might just ask in November or January, what are you thinking about doing with your summer? Just so the student puts it on their radar screen. There's a lot of funding opportunities that come up early in the spring. And so it's really just to help the student keep on their path and figure out what that path is without being prescriptive at all. And then once the student chooses their major, they will sometimes change their advisor if that advisor is in a different discipline. So say a student receives me as their Scripps advisor their first year when they first arrive at Scripps, but they're not going to be a biology student, which is fine, totally okay with that. At that point, I would say, you know that you want to be an English major. I'm going to suggest you switch to an English advisor because they can better advise you for that discipline and that major. And then they can always come back to me, of course, at any time and have conversations. But we're going to, sorry, I had food delivered. So they're going to switch over to their academic advisor. And that generally happens by the spring of their sophomore year.
Well, you preempted all of my follow-up questions. So it's like maybe we had shared these questions beforehand. So I appreciate that. And just to acknowledge, you know, obviously we are all coming to you from our own homes. So Jennifer getting a meal delivered seems to make perfect sense in a COVID panel reality. So you may see little humans pop into my screen at some point, as I'm sure we've all experienced in this reality of living our life on these little screens. So thank you so much, Jennifer. To our students, I would love to just pose a sort of broad question of what is the relationship like with your professors? And maybe how is it different than the relationship was with your high school teachers? Because I think it's something that's really hard sometimes to imagine if you haven't been to college yet. But if you could share with our attendees just maybe how it's been different and how you see that relationship.
I think that compared to high school, my relationship with my professors has changed a lot. So one of the ways that it's changed is that office hours are something that I'm much more involved in college than I was in high school. So I've gone to office hours a lot more, and I've talked to professors a lot more deeply about some of the issues that I've been having. And it's not really just service level stuff that, you know, talking about like, oh, I don't think I can get this assignment and can you give me an extension? It's more, I'm really having trouble with this topic and I don't understand it for X, Y, and Z reasons. Can you really help me delve into this further so I can understand it for our next exam or my next paper? And I think that outside of office hours, I've generally understood that professors are a bit more receptive to student input, whether that be about class materials, just like things in general. For example, last spring when we were all moving online, the day that we got that announcement, my Korean class had a midterm and students were feeling really pressured about that announcement, plus like this big exam that we had. And so we as a class talked to the professor asking them to push our midterm back just so that we can have some space to kind of process what was going on. And our professor was super receptive to that, especially since we came to her as kind of a class and told her like, this is the situation for a lot of us right now. And we need some space to kind of process all of this. So she was super receptive. And I think that that's in general, something that a lot of Scripps and Claremont College's professors are going to be like, they're going to be very receptive.
Yeah, just going off of that, I love the relationships that I've been able to form with my professors. I think, yeah, it's just been really great to be able to form some sort of kind of mentor-mentee relationship with some of them. And when I think back to high school, my mind automatically goes to kind of just sitting in a classroom and expected to memorize all this information that was being kind of lectured at me and then expected to be able to regurgitate all of that back. Whereas in college, I think professors really make an effort to have us understand that we're not only learning from them, but they're also learning from us. And, we're learning from our classmates as well. I love that all of my professors have given us the opportunity. They want to learn how we are inside of the classroom, but also take the time to learn who we are outside of the classroom, what we're passionate about. And so I know a couple of professors who invite students to dinner at one of our dining halls, who schedule office hours. And I sat down with the professor and she's just like, don't tell me anything about school. Who are you outside of Scripps? And so it was amazing to be able to just talk to someone about that experience and know that, we are students, but also human beings outside of that have lives and backgrounds that are super important too. And so, yeah, I've loved the relationships that I've been able to form with my professors.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a dog barking outside. I definitely have to agree with Abby. I remember in high school, my Spanish literature teacher, I always went into that class so ready to learn. She would send us, everyone didn't really like her that much because she would send essays, a lot of reading. And I personally thought I had a very good relationship with her. And it wasn't until college that I realized, oh, she was actually more like a college professor than a high school teacher. Now that makes sense. And I think that's why I really love my relationship with all my professors, because it's much more, you can always go up to them and say, I'm having trouble, I need more help here. And they're always there to help you. They're not per se mad at you that you didn't memorize something or disappointed or things that you might have felt in high school with teachers. I definitely feel like professors at college are there to help you grow and become the person you want to become. They're just there to help you. So I definitely think that's been a very important part of my college life, having professors that I know I can count on to help me. And yeah, I just love it. I love having conversations with professors about class or other things all the time. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all again so much for that insight. And thank you all for the questions that you're putting into the Q&A. We're going to come back to those at the end. So go ahead and keep them coming. Anna Marie in our office will answer the easy ones that she can, and then we'll take the more tricky ones or ones where we want student and faculty input on when we get to the end of our questions. So Jennifer, I want to circle back to you because our students have just been talking a lot about their experiences with the faculty, which seem like they're rooted in this sort of mutually beneficial relationship, and maybe, students have a little bit more impact, in how that relationship operates and has a mentoring component. From your perspective as a faculty member, what do you see as the relationship among the faculty? How is that different, teacher to teacher, but then also the relationship that students have with professors from your perspective as a faculty member?
We just did a session, a few of us just did a session actually with our first year students, and it was entitled Demystifying the Academy, because really what college is it's the academy, and we've welcomed all of our students into that. And what that means is we're not just delivering information that we want them to absorb and regurgitate back at us. That's not what the academy does. The academy is a collection of scholars that creates knowledge, and we're welcoming our students into that group. We want our students to collaborate with us, to work with us in order to create new knowledge. And in order to do that, one must be an expert in a field and understand what's going on and understanding where that edge of knowledge exists and understanding what are the important questions that really should be addressed. What do we need to know to move forward? And that's what we strive to do with our students, as well as with each other. Faculty collaborate with each other on scholarship all the time. And so it's a really fundamentally different relationship with different goals. My son is in high school right now, and I see the high school relationship with his teachers. He has wonderful teachers, but it's just fundamentally different. And so I think that switch really becomes apparent in your first year with Core 1 and understanding you are not going to just memorize everything we give you in Core 1, because that, oh my goodness, is impossible. What we're asking you to do is come up with new ideas, novel theses, defend them, talk about them, come up with something that maybe your professor does not agree with. and then have a good conversation about it. And all of this learning and all of this pushing and all of this really struggling to figure out what do we need to know and how do we move, what are the important questions for our field to move forward, really end in the senior thesis when a student actually does generate new knowledge and create something amazing that's completely unique to them.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. I want to go back to a question that I think that Anna might really enjoy, especially based on the earlier comments. So would love to hear from our students about how you went about picking your major. And did it go to plan, or were you maybe surprised along the way at sort of where you've landed in terms of your areas of interest that you're going to focus on in your major coursework?
So it did not go according to plan at all for me. I came into Scripps thinking that I was going to be a politics major on the pre-law track. And I ended up actually taking a few politics classes and really enjoying them. But aside from those, I also took an introduction to philosophy course. And aside from that, I also ended up taking an introduction to computer science course. And in both my philosophy and computer science courses, we talked about artificial intelligence, and that was super, super interesting to me because I looked at artificial intelligence not only from the kind of hardline, the coding perspective, but also from the philosophical perspective, which is not something that I thought even existed before I came to college. And so I got really interested in kind of the intersection between philosophy and computer science. And that kind of blossomed into me choosing cognitive science as a major. And especially within that major, choosing computer science as my sub-concentration and pursuing a philosophy minor. So although I got to experience really, really cool politics classes, and I have a special place in my heart for the Scripps politics department, I also kind of got to discover this thing that I never even knew existed and never even knew that I would be interested in before I came to college.
That's so funny because I actually also came into Scripps thinking I was going to be a politics major or do some sort of like public policy like analysis. And so I started taking those classes as well, and also was just taking classes that I was just generally drawn to. And in one of my meetings with my academic advisor, we sat down and we were just looking at classes that I was taking. I think I was in my sophomore year at this point, and she was just like, "Are you a politics major or a CLS major?" which is the Chicanics Latinx Studies. And I had never even really heard or thought that was like something that I could pursue. And yeah, after sitting down and kind of having this conversation with her, I realized that I just really valued the discussions that I was having within my CLS classes, and just wanted to continue down that path. And so yeah, that's how I kind of got to my major. But, yeah.
So I went in knowing that I was going to study environmental analysis, but that is a major outside of Scripps, so cross campus. And I knew that I wanted to major in something else. Being who I am, I'm like, I'm not satisfied with just one major, I need two. So I took my first semester of college, I took an Italian cinema course, and it really reminded me how much I loved learning Italian, and it took me back to like when I learned my first, well, my third language, but like my first learning language, and I was like, I think I might want to minor in Italian. And then I saw that Scripps had a foreign language major, and I was like, well, here we go. And so now I'm a foreign language major in Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese, and I really love it because I find that learning a new language is not only learning a new language, it's learning a new part of yourself, because every time I switch the language, like who I am doesn't change, but my personality may switch a little, might be a little more outgoing, a little more closed, but that's why I chose foreign languages as my second major. But I just have to say, I don't think I've had a single bad experience in any of my major courses at Scripps. So I think it's just finding who you are and what you want to do to choose what the right track is for you.
It's interesting. We have a question in the chat just about sort of how do you fit in classes if you have a dual major or major and a minor, and some of that, which I would love just maybe if you all could speak to that for a moment of like, we talk in the admission office a lot about like a sort of seminal Scripps identity is having a lot of interests, right? Being genuinely interested in seeing where things come together and where they kind of, that rub and the connection between disciplines. So for the students, this wasn't sort of in our pre-prepared questions, but have you found that you're able to meet the requirements for your different majors, minors, dual majors, double minor, all the ways that students can construct that? Is it possible? And do you find that you're able to do that and still graduate on time?
So my majors are very different, which means that they don't really cross over that much, but I have like made a list of how much I have to do in order to graduate on time, to meet my GEs, my major requirements. And although they don't cross over that much, I do see some crossover here and there. But speaking from someone who has completely different majors, I do think that it's possible to graduate on time and have two majors. And I think it's even easier if you have majors that kind of cross over in some ways. So yeah, it's definitely possible, and you should do it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about doing a philosophy minor. I had just taken a few philosophy courses here and there that just sounded interesting to me. But when I was planning out my schedule, I thought, okay, like I have the space to take a few more like philosophy courses and get the minor. And why not? Like I want to explore all these different facets of philosophy. So I think it is definitely doable, especially if you, again, communicate with your advisor well and just kind of plan out. I think around your sophomore year is a good time to kind of plan out like what your major is going to look like, how you're going to schedule the courses you need for your major, or dual major or double major or minor, whatever that may be. Yeah, definitely doable.
Awesome. Jennifer, we talk about Scripps being collaborative, a collaborative space. We talk about that a lot when we're talking to prospective students. How does that show up in the curriculum? Like, can you give us some specific examples of faculty working together for the betterment of a student's academic experience at Scripps, and sort of how that shows up in the curriculum?
Yeah, I think it goes faculty collaborate, I think faculty and staff collaborate, and then of course faculty and students collaborate. So the students have been talking about their amazing majors and minors and all of their interesting classes. And I also just want to point out that most of our, well, a great many of our students, the majority I believe, study abroad as well. So they manage to fit all of this in, and we encourage our students to explore the possibility of studying abroad. And so faculty collaborate in all sorts of ways. They collaborate, of course, in Core 1. Many of our Core 2 courses are team taught, and many of our other courses are team taught. In science, many of the introductory courses are team taught between, say, a biologist and a chemist, and even our introductory biology courses there's collaboration sort of behind the scenes of all the different instructors who are putting the course on. I collaborate with a writing professor. We've taught in Core 1 together, and we regularly teach in Core 2 together. Our faculty collaborate with students on senior theses. So when a student does their senior thesis, they'll have a first reader and a second reader. And oftentimes those faculty actively collaborate together to really help the student with their independent research. And it shows up in the curriculum as well. I know the students can speak more directly to this, but it shows up in the classroom, the way the students work and the way that the assignments are created. So we really have a lot of group work that occurs in classrooms. There's group presentations, group projects, sometimes group exams. And we really emphasize that one learns best when you're helping each other and when you're collaborating. And so we encourage that from day one at Scripps. It shows up, I see it a lot in our science curriculum. So we have a lot of pre-med students, of course, at Scripps. And Some places, pre-med students may have a reputation for being competitive. That is absolutely not the case at Scripps College. At Scripps College, all of our students know that we don't curve in absolute numbers. There's not a finite number of A's that the students are battling over. That's not the way we grade at all. So it's to every student's benefit to help each other. So if I have a student who comes to me as an advisee and they say, well, I'm having some struggles in one of my classes, the first thing I ask is, who is your study buddy or your study group for that class? And if they say, well, I'm just studying alone, I say, well, that is the first thing you can do, is find some other students to work together. And as they begin to work together, they form friendships, of course, and they continue to form collaborations that extend through multiple years at Scripps. And so it's wonderful. I mean, we have people who come here and teach and they say to me, our students are just so nice. And I say, I know, because they've been working together since day one and they really want to help each other. They complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they're really there to lift each other up. And it just makes it a wonderful place to work and a wonderful place to teach.
So for our students, all of your majors, which this just like tees up so nicely, all of your majors are interdisciplinary. And I think when in the admission process and for our attendees today, if you have gone to an info session or you've been on Instagram Live hours with our ambassadors or other things, we talk about Scripps being collaborative and interdisciplinary, right? Those are the two words that we use a lot. I do think like an interdisciplinary is very much like a college word and can be something that when you're in high school, you hear that and you think, should I really know what that means? Or maybe I've had one class that felt that way. I would love it if you could just share our attendees, like, what does an interdisciplinary experience mean to you? How has that shown up in your academic experience at Scripps?
So I think for me, interdisciplinary learning just means really just taking a holistic approach to what I'm learning about, and knowing that it's not just, when I'm taking a sociology class, it's not just about sociology. It also incorporates politics and history and ethnic studies. And so it's really awesome to be able to, I think, come into the school that really drives this kind of need to incorporate like students' passions that come from different disciplines. And it's really awesome, like when I'm in a class, that I can bring in readings from a class that I took a couple semesters ago or another one that I'm taking this semester and apply it to like the relevant discussions that we're having today. And so, yeah, it's really nice to kind of continue making these connections. And I think it better prepares us to, continue being critical thinkers and knowing how to analyze, things both inside and outside of the classroom.
Yeah, just to echo what Abby said, I think that my major is a very interdisciplinary major. And I think that's what really pulled me to it when I was first choosing it. There aren't actually like too many like courses with the label CogSci or the course code CogSci. It's so, it like pulls from so many different areas. So for example, psychology, linguistics, computer science, philosophy. I think that I definitely love that this is a major that I can pursue at Scripps College and the 5Cs specifically, because the freedom that we have to kind of like choose the courses that we want really complements the wide range of the major courses that I can take for my major. So being able to kind of explore like psychology, for example, and linguistics, which I had never even considered exploring before I came to college, was really a plus for me.
Yes, definitely exactly what both Abby and Gloria have said. I definitely think that environmental analysis is a very interdisciplinary study. There's so many ways you can approach it. It's ridiculous sometimes. You're like, studying environmental analysis, but is that being specific? Not really. So I definitely think that most majors are very interdisciplinary, and as Abby said, it's always fun to say, oh, in a reading I did for such and such class, maybe this semester, or many semesters past, I think it's sorry, my mom just walked in. So sorry. Yeah, so I think it's very fun to see how you can bring other things into the new classroom, as well as, and professors are always like, oh, I always love when classes mix and blah blah blah. So yeah, sorry.
I feel like we should say hi to Mom. Hi, Mom. Thanks for being here. Hi.
We're working on little brother's art project, so got to get the art supplies.
I mean, this is our COVID life, so I am totally here for it. Still waiting for Jennifer's cat to make an appearance as well.
She's in my office, by the way.
I feel like that's a response only a mother can give. So, so we've gotten a ton of great questions from our attendees, and so thank you all so much. I think one that I would like to just start with is we got a question, and I realized we kind of like barreled through the beginning of our presentation, like right into academics, which was, you know, we're so excited to talk about the academic experience at Scripps. But, you know, our panelists want to know, for our students, like, what drew you to Scripps? And is there a moment where you realized that you belonged at Scripps? I think that might be helpful as we just go into sort of this sort of ending part of our time together, where we're going to answer a few questions for our attendees.
I can start just because I can think of that moment as soon as you said that. So actually, when I was applying to Scripps, I was applying regular decision, really didn't know much of the school until I got flown out through the Discover Scripps program. And I think those couple days, I fell in love with the campus and the community. And I think the community is kind of that essential point that drew me to applying Scripps and knowing that I wanted to be there. I loved interacting with the current students and just seeing how empowered and confident they were both inside and outside of the classroom, and knew that I wanted to embody that as like a shy senior in high school who never spoke. And so, yeah, I wanted to continue having like the critical discussions that they were having, and, you know, wanted to challenge myself, and not in a competitive way, but more in a like, we want to help each other continue learning and sometimes unlearning, but, you know, walk through that process together and be able to take on all of these amazing leadership positions across the campus. And so, yeah, I think just seeing the community, and I think that's something that continues to draw me back and something that I miss not being on campus. But it's, yeah, definitely the community.
So for me, there were two moments that I knew. So the first one was when I got denied for my top choice, and it had no effect on me. I opened it, it said, we regret to inform you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. And then when I got my acceptance letter to Scripps, I opened it and I got accepted, and I just started crying my eyes out. I was just crying and crying and crying. I called my mom, she was at the pharmacy. She's like, what's happening, Anna? Is everything okay? I'm like, I got into Scripps. So I think that was a moment when I realized, oh, I didn't really want my top choice. If this had an effect on me emotionally, then I guess this is what I wanted. And the second moment was when my mom flew me. I had to go to the States by myself to see the 3 top choice colleges that I had gotten into. And I went to Scripps for Admitted Students Day. And I remember leaving an a cappella concert that they had put on for Admitted Students Day. And I was walking through Elm Tree Lawn, and in my mind I said, I'm home. And so, I don't know, it's a very romantic-y thing, but I definitely felt like I was just walking and I'm like, I feel so comfortable here, like this is home. So yeah.
I think for me, it was when I met my roommate over Instagram. So before I actually met her in person when I moved in on the first day, but I got like a message from her after we had figured out that we were going to be roommates with each other. And we were just like, excuse me, messaging back and forth a little bit. And over time, over like the first week of our messaging, I just realized like, oh my God, like this person, like the kind of people that Scripps kind of attracts are the people that I want to be around. And we just kind of like, we matched so well, even just over text. We were talking about like our favorite books, our favorite artists, things like that, like that we had just shared passions for. And we figured out that I had a favorite book that she had drawn like painted like a painting of, and so we were like, oh my god, this is perfect, like we're matching so well. And just I think talking to her and being able to just like share with this person that I just met all these things that I was super passionate about really led me to believe that like this is like the place that I want to be at. These are like the people that I want to be around.
Thank you so much for sharing. As you all were talking, it made me also just miss physically being on campus as well. So I think that, you know, just that feeling of community and collaboration with all of you as students and across the faculty and staff as well is such an important part of who we are. We've gotten a number of questions in the Q&A just about like specific academic programs. So Gloria, in your answer, I'd love it if you'd speak a little bit about cognitive science, but just more broadly for Anna, Aby, and Gloria, how did you go about like learning about different academic programs at Scripps, either as a current student or even when you were looking at Scripps?
So knowing that I wanted to study environmental analysis, that was like an important part of my college search. So I wanted to make sure that any college I went to, whichever one I chose, I was going to be able to study that. So I definitely would ask in like panels like this, like what the program was like and what was the specific focus, if you could have different things. And I think that the Scripps webpage on the majors is actually very, very specific for you to understand what classes you need to take. And based off that, you can realize, oh, this is too sciencey for me. I was looking for something a little more interdisciplinary with the humanities or the social studies. And so if you're looking for figuring out majors at Scripps, I would definitely suggest you go to the page. And I think that once I became a Scripps student, it was much easier to take a class and realize, oh, I really, really like this subject and I really like this professor and I know that they're in the languages department, so I'm going to talk to them about the foreign language major and what that encompasses, what classes I need to take, if it's fit for me, if maybe it doesn't really go with what I want to do. So I think it's a process, and I think like one of the easiest first steps is just going on and seeing what major Scripps has to offer and kind of like the structure, the breakdown of like the requirements for the major and then everything else that are like electives. So yeah.
I can add something really quickly, just echoing all of what Anna said, but also I think what's really great about once becoming a Scripps student, and Scripps professors are just there and they want to see students grow and learn and just want students to get involved. And so often a lot of major departments will also just have like open houses is what they call them. And so like on campus, that's a great way to just like go in, learn more about the majors, the programs that they offer, the kind of classes. And so yeah, there's just like various opportunities to kind of explore what might work for you.
Yeah, what I really loved about my Scripps academic experience is that I didn't have to go from like thinking about majors and major requirements to kind of associating that with my interests. I could really go from like thinking I'm really interested in this and this and this, and then from there formulating a major that fit those interests. So I didn't really have to compromise on anything that I was super interested in. And CogSci was a great fit for me because it incorporated both computer science and philosophy, but it also supplemented those with linguistics, psychology, and other things. And I really loved that the program that I was in, that I'm currently in, differentiated between kind of psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, because I think that when you do an in-depth study of these things, on the surface, it might seem like these are very, very related, and they are, but I think that once you get deeper into the material, you realize that there are fundamentally different things that kind of differentiate between cognitive science and psychology and neuroscience. And so as someone who really loves cognitive science and psychology, I got to explore those things and also try out a little bit of neuroscience, but see why neuroscience wasn't the best fit for me compared to cognitive science and psychology. So really being able to not have to compromise some of the class spots that I wanted to fit like a major was really important to me, because I wanted to take classes in the things that really, really interested me. And I did have to say no to the classes that I wanted to take.
Great. We've gotten a few questions about like research, labs, thesis. And I think for all of you, maybe if you could just speak to your experience at Scripps for our students about what experiential learning has looked like for you at Scripps. And yeah, I think just maybe having some specific examples would be really helpful for our attendees.
So yeah, I love that Scripps kind of gives students the resources platform to kind of pursue their own independent interests and projects. And so this past summer, I was actually awarded a fellowship to pursue my own research under the guidance of a history professor within the Latin American and Caribbean Studies department. And so, yeah, I was kind of, not to get too specific, but I was able to, you know, work with this professor, and we like interviewed women in Latin America and just learned about the work that they're doing within social movement organizations. And it was amazing to be able to pursue something that I'm passionate about, and have like and also get supported by Scripps at the same time. And so I was actually able to turn this like summer research into my thesis this year. And so it's great to kind of to be able to continue this independent project and now kind of be a little bit ahead on my senior thesis. And so it's amazing. I love that I was able to kind of pursue this experience. And often we don't think of, or at least I didn't think of, research and humanities as something that you can do as an undergrad. And so it was amazing to be able to kind of be given that opportunity and explore that on my own.
Yeah, just to echo what Abby said, I think that coming into college, a misconception that I had was that things like research, like labs and hands-on projects were only reserved for STEM-focused people. That is not the case at all, especially at Scripps. And so one of the best experiences of experiential learning that I had was actually through my Core 3 class, which was Foreign Language Teaching and Culture Clinic. And so through that class, I got to teach Korean to a classroom of fourth graders with a friend of mine. And I got to actually go to a local elementary school and stand in that classroom and do all this like kind of hands-on teaching, which is really cool and not something that I would ever have thought possible through, especially a general education course, a course that like everyone has to take. But the flexibility of Core 3 and all the other cores, or Core 2 and Core 3, are that you can kind of choose what course you take, even though you do have to take a Core 2 and Core 3, you can kind of formulate that to your interests. So I thought that was really cool.
Having been at Scripps only a year and a little more, I haven't really had too much of an opportunity to do my own research or like reach out to professors to see if I can join their research and different things like that. But I do have to say that I've always had professors who are sending out emails like, oh, there's a fellowship, there's an internship, there's all these possibilities for you, take them. And so I definitely think that there's always a possibility, and not only professors, but also LASPA and other places, centers on campus are focused on trying to have you have the best experience of college and not just focus on your education and taking classes, but expand that. And I do think, as Gloria was mentioning, even classes give you that opportunity, like Core 3. I'm also taking that core, Foreign Language Teaching Clinic. And it's really an amazing opportunity to figure out like an actual position, like what would be an actual job teaching students a different language. And it's not like, oh, today we're going to learn numbers. Like we actually have to formulate a whole curriculum and create lesson plans, and we get graded on those lesson plans. So we have to figure out what's the best TPR, like what hand movements are we going to do when we're teaching the new word, or pictures or videos. And I think it's really important to know that Scripps is looking out for you so that you're like really making the most of your college experience, not just through education, but through all the other opportunities life has to offer.
Jennifer, did you want to share from the faculty perspective just some information about experiential learning that could be helpful for our attendees today?
I would love to, but I don't think I could say it better than the students. It was amazing. I think experiential learning is absolutely key. And many people think of it as happening in the sciences, which of course it does. And even while we're remote, our science labs are continuing. Our chemistry labs are happening in people's kitchens with safe approaches. So students are physically still doing their laboratories, even while we're remote. And when we're in person, of course, it's completely immersive. But that experiential learning isn't restricted to the sciences. As we've heard, it's in the humanities, it's in the social sciences, it's in cog-sci, and it's something that I think Scripps is also taking out beyond Scripps, into our local community, into our elementary schools, into other local organizations. And all of these experiences build up to form the student into the person they want to become. So as fellowship advisor, it is my job to talk to students like these and these students. And we have 1,000 students like these students. They're all amazing. And each of these experiences then form their passions. And I've said, I think this before, but I've been here a long time, and our students always wanted to change the world. And now our students have to change the world, right? There's a lot on their shoulders. And they're able to do it, and because they're phenomenal. So each of these experiences leads to something else. So a core 3 that puts you in a classroom might lead you to a fellowship, to a Fulbright application, right? To teach English abroad. A summer research experience will lead to your senior thesis, and all of our students do an original senior thesis. That's their capstone experience. So a summer research experience funded by Scripps can lead to a senior thesis, which can lead to graduate school, which can lead to who knows what, an amazing career, making the world a better place. And our students really, they live by those words. They're not just cliches. They're really passionate, they're intelligent, they're amazing. It's just a privilege to work here with them.
We've gotten a couple questions in the Q&A just about managing workload, right? And so like on a panel like this, I know we like to throw out a lot of, these are all the great things about academics at Scripps, and here's how wonderful it is, which it is. But for our students, I would love to just allow you to offer your reflection on either balancing your workload with other things, or maybe it's a time that you weren't able to balance it and it didn't go great, but what you learned from that. And so I'll allow you to sort of answer it as you will, but just offering our attendees a real look into what it's like to balance academics at a place like Scripps that has really high expectations on you.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely daunting just because you are expected to kind of think and learn in a new way that I just never experienced in high school. And so there were moments when I was trying to juggle it all. I was trying to keep up with all my readings and papers, endless amounts of readings, I think sometimes. And then also like clubs and extracurricular activities and hanging out with friends. And, you know, there was this point where I was just taking on too much, frankly. And I was getting to a point of like burnout, and I recognized that in myself. But lucky for me, I also had friends who kind of saw that and saw that I was getting to this point, and professors that actually noticed that too. And so one of my professors pulled me in, and she was just like, I've noticed that, you know, you seem tired in class, like you're doing a lot, what's going on, what can we do? And like totally cried in front of her and just like broke down. But she was just like super helpful and like, okay, like college is stressful, yes, like let's, like, what can we do about this? Like, what resources can I guide you to? Like, we have academic coaches on campus to like help you like rearrange your time and like find what works for you. You know, let's do a study group, let's do this, like checking in with your friends. And so I think back to that conversation, and whenever I'm kind of feeling like I'm putting too much on myself, and just think to all the resources that I have access to, whether that be friends or like actual academic resources, to kind of, again, help manage all of that workload. Yeah.
I definitely agree with Abby. I think it's really, really helpful and really great to talk to not only your friends and your other classmates, but also your professors and advisors about, you know, just what's going on in your life. And how you're balancing everything that is going on. Because I think at a place like Scripps, it can be hard to balance so many things, especially when there are so many different things that you're interested in. And I think that what's great about Scripps is that you're surrounded by people who are interested in lots of different things. And so everyone is kind of having to deal with this this idea of like, I'm interested in so many different things, how can I balance them all? And so I think listening to my friends talk about, yeah, I'm doing these classes and this club and I'm working here, like, and it's all great, but I'm kind of having trouble doing like quality work in my classes, and I feel like I'm falling behind. Like, listening to them acknowledge those things and talking it through with them, and also having them listen to me and myself talking through those experiences with my friends is really helpful, because you really can't do like everything and overexert yourself and enjoy your experience at college, I think. So as someone who's worked part-time, who's done work study for all 4 years, I think I've really realized that having a community of people to support you and talk through those things that those issues that you're facing is really important and really helpful, in kind of helping you realize like what you should be prioritizing and what maybe doesn't need to be prioritized.
Yeah, and just literally everything Abby and Gloria said. And I just want to say, you can mix things sometimes. When I have a lot to do, I'm like, okay, tell my friends we're going to the library to study till 1 a.m. But I'm still with my friends. So I'm joining my social life with my studying life. And it's like, okay, let's take a coffee break, or okay, now let's go outside and just breathe fresh air and go back inside and stay till 1 a.m. again. And I think that you can definitely learn from combining things. Not everything has to be separate. It's not like your time studying, your time writing, your time with your friends. So yeah.
All right, well, speaking of time, we are officially at time. And so I just want to really thank our panelists, Gloria, Abby, Anna, and Jennifer, for making the time on a Saturday. And to all of our attendees, thank you so much for coming.